that has the ability, I guess, to put it all together. One of the things that I do, I think that I do really well, is I can take very complex issues and I can simplify them for people and explain them really, really well. And I mean, that's a skill in of itself. And one of the other things is I do recognize patterns. I recognize what's going on, and I can find out a fact or a piece of information, and I can stick it in my head, and I'll say to myself, I don't know why that's important, but I know it's going to be important at some point. And 2 years later, there'll be some other thing that'll connect with it, and I'll go, oh yeah, that's why that was important. And then I take those and I put them into sort of a, I tell the story, I weave the mosaic, and that's I think what I do and what I bring to people. And I simply point out to them things that they may not have noticed were connected, and say, look, if you look at this actually it connects to this, and it probably means that. And so that's what you try to do, is just relate the information as I see it. I mean, right now I'm fascinated by this John F. Kennedy Jr. rumor that's out there that I think I'm leaning toward it being true.
I've been hearing that too.
JFK Jr.'s not dead. So, I mean, I'm really leaning toward it not, that being true. And there's a lot of information.
What is the impetus that makes you lean that way?
Well, there is this story that's been floating around that some people thought they saw a guy at a Donald Trump rally last summer that looked like John F. Kennedy Jr. and maybe a little bit disguised, but looks like John F. Kennedy Jr. And I started looking and I said, damn, if JFK Jr. was 58, he'd look pretty much like this guy. And he's wearing, I think, a wig and a hat, and he's wearing glasses, but it sure looked an awful lot like him. And then other people pointed out that there was a woman nearby him at one of the rallies, and actually with him at the second rally, who is the spitting image of Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, who supposedly died in the plane crash with him in 98 or 99. And I mean, the more I looked at the woman who looked like Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, the more I realized, oh my God, I think that's exactly her. I mean, the smile, the nose, the chin,
the facial structures on both of them. Yes.
Yeah. And then, I look at a lot of other data, and, the bottom line is this guy who has a name, his name is Vincent Fusca, which literally means to conquer darkness, which is a fascinating name, Vincent Fusca. And people have lined up, there's things you can change, right? You can get a nose job. You can have your chin bones redone. Look at Michael Jackson. You can get your teeth done. You can have your collagen on your lips. But there's certain things you can't change. And one of the things you can't change is the proportion, the ratios and proportions between, let's say, your eye line and your mouth line. And I mean, this guy, his picture overlaid on JFK Jr. is a perfect match. And his hands look the same. And then all this other information's come out since then that for instance, some people noticed that the girl who looked like Carolyn Bessette Kennedy, his wife, JFK Jr.'s wife, was wearing a ring that was part of the so-called Jackie Kennedy jewelry collection. It looks exactly like a ring that Jackie Kennedy Onassis once owned when she was married to him. And
well, see, I hadn't heard that. That's interesting.
Yeah, that's a new one.
I hadn't come across that yet.
Yeah, I just did a video on that a week or so ago, but I got a lot of people mad because I also talked about 9/11 on that video and made them very mad by telling them how ridiculous the 9/11 conspiracy theories are. So anyway, that
I make people mad with that too.
And then you always do, because people are very invested in their emotional belief system. But then last night, Trump did another rally in West Virginia, and this guy was there again. And there was one moment where Trump looked right at him.
Really?
People, John F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump were friends, and there's all these Q rumors about this mysterious figure named Q who's doing all these posts about the war that's going on behind the scenes between the good guys and the bad guys, and good luck figuring out who the good guys and the bad guys are. But it's very intriguing stuff, and what I do is I just try to put it together and say, okay, look, this is the information, this is what I think, and you guys can think for yourselves, but God forbid I do that on 9/11. So it got a lot of people upset.
Well, I understand. And I find that anybody who holds any conspiracy near and dear to their heart does not like hearing information, especially on that particular topic that could possibly make them have to change their opinion.
Yeah. And I mean, look, the thing is, I have my opinions too. And I have this new book out called Ancient Aliens and JFK.
Yes.
Which
Great
does
book.
not include the the JFK Jr. stuff in it, but I'm going to do a revised edition and it's going to include that. And I have to admit, I'm very invested in my particular conspiracy theory about the death of President Kennedy. Having said that, I would like to think that if I was confronted with categoric absolute evidence that I was wrong, that I would be willing to admit, gosh, I'm wrong. But it's not so easy to do with people. There's so many people that are just so strongly invested in the 9/11 conspiracy thing. And the thing about it too is that, Catherine, it's like, I can believe that there was some sort of conspiracy around 9/11, but that doesn't mean that the conspiracy didn't involve hijacking airplanes and flying them into buildings, and the buildings came down because of that. I mean, that's all I'm arguing about, is that part of it. And it's just,
right.
People are so like, oh, the whole thing has to be true. Every single piece of this has to be true. And gosh, no, it doesn't. It's not. And I'm at a point, it's interesting. I'm at a point in my life with everything where my tolerance for willful ignorance is just zero. I mean, I'm like, people will come on and attack me on YouTube on my video for the silliest things, like airplanes can't fly at 400 miles an hour at sea level. That's complete nonsense. I'm an aerospace engineer. Trust me, that's nonsense. But
you are, right? They should listen to this.
Well, the thing is, Catherine, there's so many myths that people just believe. And I'm like, that's not true. And I spend the whole time on the 9/11 argument. I just feel like I spend the whole time saying, well, that's not true. No, that's not true either. No, that's not true either. It's really this. So that's all I can do, I guess. It's like sometimes you feel like you spend your whole time, the whole, like, why even talk about it? Because I just end up in these arguments with people that just will not listen. But yet, at the other hand, I guess I do it because I think to myself, what about that one person out there that's undecided, that's trying to look for the truth? And I feel like I have a duty to them to try to show them, hey, look at this information, because this is maybe what the truth is. And I don't know why it's so important to me, but it is.
Maybe it's just your path.
Well, yeah, the truth is just really, really important to me, I guess.
Well, I think that the way that you deliver it is informative, it's open, it's just pretty much, okay, these are facts. These facts can't really be altered because they're facts. Mm-hmm. And so this is why I'm explaining it to you this way. As I said, I got to listen to you at both conferences that I attended on the West Coast. I was very pleased to do that because I enjoy your personality. I enjoyed your delivery of information, and I enjoy your information. So to be able get to listen to you is amazing.
That's nice to know, and I really appreciate that, because you never know. Sometimes I'm out there and I'll be looking out and I'll be like, am I able to keep them awake? But then when it's over, everybody that was there tells me how much they love it. So I must be doing what they want. I just never sure if I'm really keeping them awake. And also I have a very irreverent, fun-loving sense of humor. Yes, I like to make jokes about things. I don't feel like it's beneath me to make a sex joke, even if it's now an appropriate one, not an inappropriate one.
Right.
But I mean, I just don't get why people are so uptight. Everybody's so serious. And it's like, sometimes I think you can reach more people by having some fun with them. And
I was just talking about that with Tom Conwell earlier. Everybody in this country and in large parts of the world are seriously angry. They have been seriously angry from either side of the spectrum for, well over 10 years now. And it has gone, I compared it to New York City and Ghostbusters 2, where all this stuff is just roiling under the surface.
Yeah.
And it has to have a release point. So anybody that speaks a truth that doesn't match their personal truth is going to become a target.
Right. And, that's fascinating, because that's really what's happening, is that there is this buildup of energy that is taking place. I actually wrote a book about this in 2010 called The Choice. And, I made some predictions about what was going to happen in terms of our culture and our politics and our finances, and all of it's basically coming true at this point. The finances we'll see, but everything else is coming true. And I'm trying to explain to people, just try to breathe and be calm and relax, because this is normal. This is what's supposed to happen right now, is we're supposed to be polarized, and we're supposed to be taking sides. And, we're not going to have a peace, love, moving forward, hand in hand moment for another 6 or 8 years, not until the mid 2020s, because that's when the physics shifts with the astronomy, when the planets move and the rotational energies and stuff shift. And by that time, we will have picked a new path forward, which is what we're in the process of doing right now. We're picking a new path forward. And what's happening with the only way you can do that is to expose the truth about everything that's been going on, about the way the old system has disserved us. And that's what's going on, and that's what's causing all the polarization and all the argument. And, I think it's going to get very volatile. And I just try to tell everybody, make sure you got enough food and water to get through a couple of weeks. And, if you're a gun person, I'd say make sure you got your guns loaded just in case.
Well, but, everything is a just in case. People anticipated, I have friends who are serious, dedicated to it, preppers, and to the point of altered their lifestyle and bought a farm so that they could provide their own food. They're dedicated preppers. And yes. I'm like, well, that's actually not a bad idea, because you've got your own stuff, but I just don't think that I would take to farm life well.
No, I think I'm me either. I'm a city boy, and I think I would prefer, 50 cases of cup of noodles and a bunch of water that I could.
I have that, right? That I have.
Right. Yeah. But, so, that's, I'm not a big grow your own food and, organic pesticides kind of guy either. I'm not really that guy. So,
I figure Monsanto's had me for, over 50 years now. It's not going to really matter for the next, 30 or so.
Right. But, and the thing is, I do think that if there is something that does happen, that the worst part of it will be fairly short term. Right. And, because I do know that there are people at the top that want everything, that realize this transition is coming, and they want it to be smooth, and they want it to be as painless as possible for as many of us as possible. And I believe they're going to win. So, I just, when I hear these scenarios about, the depopulation scenario and all this stuff, I'm like, well, if they're trying to depopulate the planet, they're doing a really lousy job of it, because we just keep having more and more babies. And you know what I mean? It's like, I've kind of heard this stuff for a long time. The only prediction I feel like ever really came true was the millennium thing. Remember the year 2000 and Y2K? And, 9/11 was technically after the year 2000, or the turn of the century, but really the turn of the century is 2001. It wasn't 2000. That was really the new millennium. And it's like, if 9/11 isn't that terrible thing everybody thought was going to happen at the turn of the century, then what is? If it wasn't 9/11, what was it, right? So even though there may be a little bit of slop in the calculations, a year or two here and there, a year and a half, seems to me that we've gone through that, and I think now we're coming out the other side, to the point that I now know conservative Republicans who were very serious about, going to war with a lot of different people, who are now just like, we're sick of it. I'm sick of the war. I'm sick of all this. I want peace. I want, they're all for peace in North Korea.
Right.
And it's interesting. It feels like political allegiances are really shifting. And I think the traditional parties as we have known them are going to be out of a job in another 6 or 8 years.
Well, I don't think it's